Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into a pretty stunning geopolitical prediction from Professor Jiang over at the Predictive History channel. He lays out this whole scenario where a conflict with Iran could literally change the world as we know it. Okay, let's just jump right in. This is the professor's core idea, his main point. And what's wild is that it's the final piece of a three-part prediction. The first two parts, they've already happened. So that makes this third super dramatic prediction something we really have to break down. So first up, where does this whole controversial idea even come from? Let's unpack the basics. According to Jiang, see, this isn't some random conflict. He says Iran has been getting ready for this for 20 years. In their eyes, it's a religious war against the great Satan. And they've been using their proxy groups, like the Houthis and Hezbollah, as a way to study the American military, to really get inside the American mindset, and cook up the perfect strategy to take them down. Okay, moving on. Jiang's argument here is that this isn't a normal war with tanks and soldiers, not at all. He frames it as economic warfare. The real target? The U.S. financial system. The strategy he lays out is, well, it's incredibly specific. It's basically a chain reaction designed to hit the absolute weak spot of the American economy, its total reliance on petrodollars from Gulf states. The idea is, by hitting the essential infrastructure of places like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, Iran can set off this domino effect that goes all the way to Wall Street. And here is the absolute linchpin of the whole thing. A massive 60% of the water supply for these Gulf nations comes from desalination plants. Jiang points to these as the ultimate weak spot. I mean, think about it. One successful drone hits a plant, and a city of 10 million people could be without water in just 2 weeks. And this just hammers home the kind of chokehold we're talking about. With 90% of their food also on the line, the actual literal existence of countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE is at risk. This isn't just about messing with their economy. We're talking about threatening their ability to even survive. All right, so let's switch gears and look at the military side of things. Jiang highlights this fundamental mismatch in cost and strategy that he thinks makes this whole war a financial black hole for the U.S. This slide really says it all, doesn't it? You have these million-dollar U.S. missiles being fired to take down drones that cost maybe $50,000. In a long, drawn-out war, that math just doesn't add up. The U.S. is literally in a race against its own supply chain. So Jiang's point is that the whole U.S. military-industrial complex, which is basically a relic of the Cold War, is built for these big, expensive shows of force, what he calls muscle flexing. It's all about looking invincible. It was never designed to fight this kind of cheap, high-volume war of attrition, and he thinks this conflict is popping that bubble of invincibility. So if the air war is a money pit, what happens next? Well, that leads us straight into what Jiang calls the inevitable ground war dilemma for the United States. And here is the fundamental problem. The official U.S. goal is regime change in Iran. But, history shows us over and over again, you can't do that with bombs alone. You need boots on the ground. And this is where the pressure cooker really starts to get turned up on the administration. Jiang's prediction here is that his allies like Saudi Arabia and Israel are facing this existential threat. They're going to back the U.S. into a corner. They'll present an ultimatum, either pay Iran a crazy amount of money, he estimates around $5 trillion to back off, or send in American soldiers to finish the job for good. But here's the massive political problem back home. According to Jiang, a whopping 78% of the American public was against the first strikes on Iran. This shows there's practically zero political will for a ground invasion. So you have this huge disconnect between what America's allies are demanding and what the American people are willing to support. So you gotta ask, right? If the strategy seems totally backwards and there's no support from the public, why in the world did the U.S. attack Iran in the first place? Well, Jiang offers 3 possible explanations, and they are very different from each other. Okay, his first theory is just plain old hubris, the classic mistake empires make when they get too big for their britches. The second theory is all about political math, the idea that even if the war is terrible for America, it personally helps President Trump with money and could even be a way to use emergency powers to delay elections. And then there's his third theory, which is where things get really out there. He points to eschatology, basically beliefs about the end of the world, and suggests powerful secret societies might be following some kind of script to trigger the end times. So Professor Jiang's analysis gives us this very stark and, let's be honest, pretty unbelievable vision of the future. But whether you think it's just a crazy prediction or a plausible blueprint, it definitely makes you question how stable our current world order really is, and makes you wonder what could possibly come next.